In 1980, Namco released the critically acclaimed Pac-Man for arcades, and the first port of the game for the home consoles was this god-awful piece of shit for the Atari 2600, and it came out in 82. You'll notice there's an asterisk next to the name Pac-Man, and the side note should read, "Total piece of f***ing garbage." Let's give it a try. You hear that? That's the sound of disappointed childhood. Now, without going into a long, drawn-out history about the success of the arcade version of Pac-Man, I'd like to instead focus on this travesty that Atari rushed out to make it to Christmas of 1981. And it was a thorough disappointment all around. It almost caused the entire collapse of the video game industry. It was that bad. Now, the higher-ups in Atari knew they had a steaming pile of shit on their hands, and they tried to defuse the situation by blaming the poor port on the limitations of the actual console itself, the actual limitations of the 2600. But this has been proven wrong, you know, after the fact. Many people have successfully created pretty true versions of Pac-Man and homebrews that would play on the 2600. And Atari's own release a few years later of Miss Pac-Man proved a much truer port to the whole Pac-Man series. So some people might ask, why such a horrible, horrible version of Pac-Man for the 2600? I mean, they were looking at practically video game gold at the time if they would have just made a halfway decent version. And the answers are pretty simple, actually. They went with a 4K ROM cart instead of an 8K because the 8K was more expensive, and they were just in a mad dash to get it out before Christmas of '81. They had the head programmer that they had assigned to this game already had previously made as an experiment a prototype, and they just took the prototype and released it. They didn't even try to polish this thing too much. There may have been a little bit of polishing, but it's more or less you're looking at the raw prototype. So there you have it. One of the world's worst ports ever made of an arcade game. And it's pretty much due to greed. Greed on Atari's part. Thanks, motherfuckers, for bringing us the worst game ever. If you're actually looking for this game, you don't have to look very far. Atari actually produced several million cartridges more than they had produced consoles at the time this game was released. And there you have it, Pac-Man for the Atari 2600. I'm Dommy from Classic Games Revisited. Until next time.